UK Motor Talk.
Well, hello everybody and welcome to yet another UK Motor Talk podcast. I'm Mike.
I'm Jim. Good evening, good day.
I'm Graham. Hello.
Automotive news. And we have seen the new Fiesta, haven't we? But in fact, there's not been any other new Fiestas in the country, but we happen to have one, which is unusual and a surprise to pretty much everybody, I think.
Yes, I think it even was to the transporter driver as well, wasn't it? Because he said, I'm not quite sure where this one appeared from, because there's still plenty of the outgoing model floating around. So we've been quite lucky. Well, one of our customers has been quite lucky, really, wasn't it? They ordered it a while ago and was half expecting an old one, then got told they get a new one, which was good news. But with it being a new one, we'd said it was going to be a bit later, but it's a good 2 months earlier than everyone was expecting this, wasn't it? And
yep.
It's quite a nice bit of kit to look at. It's maybe a bit softer, a bit smoother than the outgoing. I think we need to see a few different colours and a few different styles to work out what's best. I think with a lot of cars these days, they're very spec and colour dependent, more so than ever. You need to get the right car, right colour, right wheels for it to really pop and look just so. You know, the outgoing Fiesta ST line trim and Desert Island Blue was always the one for me. So, but whether this one will suit slightly darker colours, I think it might do. Not quite sure, but it's good to see, and it's as I say, even better news for the lucky person who's ordered it.
It's got lots of intakes on it now, because I don't have fog lamps anymore, like most new cars with LED lights. You just don't really need them. But I really only spotted because it was side on the Transport. I thought, that's got massive wheels, and it's got 18-inch wheels. I thought, it's got tinted tail lamps. Okay. So this was something which you used to get, if you remember, on sort of the VWs in the sort of early noughties. They used to do the darkened lamps on like the GTI spec cars. I always thought they looked pretty good. And you can get them on Euro spec RS turbos and that kind of stuff as well. So I'm pleased they brought that back. I think that's a nice touch. We need a bit more of nice touches and a bit more joy in car design, because I think it's very easy for people to just want a car that's easy to drive, that you can plug your phone into or not plug your phone into, as the case may be, and you get Apple CarPlay or Android Auto or whatever, and it's just in-car entertainment on wheels. I think that's a bit boring, frankly. So to have something that's a bit interesting to look at and a bit interesting to drive, which for a change isn't an SUV, in my book is pretty welcome.
I'd be inclined to agree, but yeah, I think I don't know. I think the lack of fog lights, I think it doesn't look as good, to be honest. I think maybe it's a bit down the lines of electric cars and grills, and they put fake grills on electric cars, and then lots of electric cars now don't have a grill, but I think they look odd without a grill. A car looks odd without fog lights, but maybe that's just me being old. And fog lights when I was growing up was always a sign of you bought the posh one if you had front fog lights. So is there still a bit of that? It's black wing mirrors look odd, but actually black wing mirrors are normally found on the highest spec in the range, aren't they? They're colour coded if it's the cheap one, and they're black if it's the posh one. So
dechroming. That's another thing, isn't it?
It's all gone a bit odd for me.
Yeah, if you go for the high spec, like the Sporty series, you lose the chrome. That disappears, and then you have it in black trim, the Shadow edition, and all the rest of it.
See, I think they look better for that.
Well, not having chrome.
Yeah, I think cars look better without chrome.
I quite like it on the Audi models where they have like a satin chrome. I think that's quite nice. But then I'm old-fashioned.
Yes. I'll go with satin chrome or just silver, as it's known to everyone else.
Oh yeah, that shiny silver. This is because blokes can only see about a handful of colours by comparison.
Well, you only need 8 colours, don't you? Because there are only 8 colours.
Yes. I was saying to Amy the other day, there's some dark red towels upstairs. She goes, they're not dark red, or they're not red, they're cerise. I was like, what even is cerise? Is that a thing? What does that mean? Anyone any ideas? Write to us, tweet us, anything you like. UK Motor Talk, anywhere on the socials you can find us. Tell me, what is cerise? I have not a clue.
Cerise?
Cherries? Oh, I don't know.
Sure.
Something like that.
I mean, I think the only one that's acceptable is teal, because it's in between green and blue. But
turquoise,
let's face it, depending on the lighting, it's green or it's blue, or as you say, it's turquoise, isn't it?
Yeah, but then I see turquoise as green.
There we go. Cerise is looking this up on the internet, so it must be true. A deep to vivid reddish pink. So it's pink. want to just call it
So
pink.
it's just pink then, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
It's either pink or purple. A reddish pink is just purple, isn't it?
Reddish pink. This is more pink than red, so it's pink.
I'm afraid I am reminded of the old snooker on black and white TV when they were trying to describe which were the colours.
Oh, I didn't even thought about that.
It's become a little like that, particularly as people are still buying white cars most of the time.
That must be ridiculous watching snooker on black and white television. You have no idea what's going on.
The red ball
That's
is behind
hilarious.
the pink ball, yeah. They're all shades of grey.
That was part of the incentive for upgrading the TV license from a black and white license to a colour license, wasn't it? Which, and actually, I think in 2022, I think you can still buy a black and white license, can't you?
That's madness. Can you? I'm sure you can't buy black and white television.
Well, no, but you can turn the colour down on the television that you do have, and does that mean you can get away with only a black and white TV licence? So if the goons from TV licensing come round, you just turn the colour down in the telly, and there you go, that's it.
This is the reason why footballs are the colour they are, aren't they? So they show up on a black and white television, or was the case. Obviously now, who cares?
Black and white TVs then would have a bit of a problem with cricket these days, wouldn't they?
Yes, I'm just checking. You can still buy a black and white TV licence. It'll cost you £53.50 for the year, and in just to keep up tradition, you can still pay for it by cheque, and you can still send that cheque off in the post to get your black and white TV licence. But they do point out not to send cash payments through the post.
Will they accept a postal order?
Cheque, no, cheques only.
Green Shield stamps?
As long as you write your name and address and postcode on the back of the cheque, so they can add all that up. But no mention of postal orders. But
At the BBC, someone's going to receive that and go, can't be bothered with that. There's no banks anymore to go and put it in anywhere. What's the point?
well, no, exactly, no, but you take a picture of it, don't you? You take a picture of a cheque and you pay the money into your account that way.
So does that work with your business account?
There's an old BBC department that just has black and white shredders for that purpose.
Anyway, if you're interested in just going purely black and white, maybe have a look at the Volvo colour range. Because unless you want beige, it's pretty much black or white if you're going for something big. And I never really understood this. Why is it that when you go for an executive, in inverted commas, executive car, they will only do boring colours? You can't have a big car in an interesting colour. Is it because it's if you're a businessman, do you find bright colours chavvy or something, or is it just not acceptable? I don't know.
No, I think it's the bright colours apparently don't work on bigger cars. So an S-Max or a Galaxy, for example, would look supposedly a bit odd in desert island blue, but I think it would look quite nice.
Maybe you're right. Maybe it would.
If nothing else, I think it would look different. But there was that Galaxy floating around a while ago that had been painted in RS Ultimate Green. And I thought that looked fantastic. But then I think it's a nice colour, and it's all in the eye of the beholder, isn't it?
Well, there's an S-Max that's in RS Ultimate Green that has the 2.5 litre turbo 5-pot in it that spits flames out the back. And it does look a bit ridiculous. Amusing. I think it would be quite good fun, but ridiculous. That said, I was wandering around a road that floods a lot down near Chichester the other day, which is hilarious because someone parked a Fusion in it and forgot about it. When they came back to it, everyone stood there watching this Fusion that's just up to the floor pan in water. This person burning the clutch out trying to get it out the river. And there were signs everywhere saying, this road floods at high tide. High tide is at 2 p.m. So you think people would notice? Anyway, this Land Rover Discovery drove past me, Discovery 4, and it was painted in imperial blue, which is sort of like a purpley blue colour. Because obviously we have no idea there's probably a name for a purpley blue colour. I have no idea what it is. But nevertheless, it looked fantastic. And that's a big car. And I looked at it and said, I want that. That's a useful family car. 7 seats, Disco 4. I'm amazed that it survived this long, frankly. And presumably it just come back from the garage, because you can always assume that, can't you, about those. But it did look fantastic and majestic as it was pushing itself through the water. We were chatting off air about car television programmes, and I'm generally speaking a fan of these things. You've got Bangers and Cash, for example. New series has just started. In fact, it's not just about to start, it has just started. And this is, I think, a great tea time viewing programme for your Bangers and Mash, maybe. It's one of those that you can watch. You don't really have to think about. It's quite interesting. Everyone in it's interesting. Derek's a proper character. Irreplaceable. This is, I think, fantastic tea time viewing. And then you've got other programmes like Salvage Hunters, I really enjoy, with classic cars. And that's got Paul Cowland and Drew Pritchard. And they go out and find a car, bring it back. Paul restores it in his workshop, and they have a really beautiful car at the end of it, generally speaking. And sometimes it's some really left field stuff like 2CV vans or a Saab or something. And there are lots of cars there that I last after, and it's clear that they're both really interested in it, and they just choose things they like, they do them up, and they go. But I always think they never really show you enough for the restoration in these kind of shows. I find it really interesting. It was definitely the case with the likes of Wheeler Dealers. And now you can see Ed's YouTube channel, which is really interested in China's Garage. If you're interested in the geeky mechanical bits, he does all that, and he shows you how to make up brake pipes, which was useful for me, because whilst I was struggling to try and do that, he was explaining how you do it and how you measure to make the bends, and he answers your questions. And YouTube's actually given quite an interesting interactive format for that, because you can ask a question in the comments very easily, which you couldn't do in a TV series, because usually the series is in the can, it's complete, before you get to see the first one, and he addresses it in the next episode. I find that really interesting. But I do still really like car shows, even though some of them are very formulaic and you've seen them all before to an extent. That, you know, they get the car, they do the car up, they sell it for a profit, hold out your hand, or what have you.
Yeah, I really enjoyed some of them, and as you say, Mike, some of them they just skimp the restoration bit. They don't really cover that in any sort of detail whatsoever, and then it becomes entertainment, and you might as well be watching Top Gear, which is, as far as I'm concerned, no longer a motoring program. It's a clown program. But I am curious as to what's happening with Richard and his forthcoming series, which is supposed to be more about the restoration. At least he's selling a number of his cars and bikes to fund it.
Yeah, I've watched an episode or two of that.
I've seen the first episode or two of that. It was quite enjoyable, but I think in terms of restoration and doing a car properly, as you or I, if we had the time and skills and budget to get a car as perfect as it can be, I think overhauling for me is one program that stands out as just being, God, they do it properly. And Chip Foose and his team, the cars maybe aren't always quite to my taste. There's a bit too much pinstriping and chrome going on. But what because it's mainly American muscle cars and hot rods and trucks and things like that. But the quality and attention to detail, but like so many shows that are done for entertainment, you can see the bits they've skimped round or missed or not done or not touched, and you think, oh yeah, whoever buys that is going to have to do that later. Overhauling, you know that actually, yeah, if you picked up one of those, that's the best that car has ever been, and probably 10 times better than when it rolled out of the factory. So if you haven't seen it overhauling, you can see that on Discovery. I think Discovery Turbo, they show it quite a bit. Well worth a watch. And the episode where they steal Chip Foose's own car, overhaul it for him over a period of a few months, and then present it back to him as a surprise is a particular highlight. It's a very good episode, that one. No pressure being responsible for overhauling a car for the master of overhauling. It's no mean feat.
I was just going through the list today, and if you wanted to, you could probably watch 24-hour TV of just joining up all of the programs on all of the channels, and that's only on Freeview.
It's just pure escapism for me, because the truth of the matter is, actually restoring a car, it's hard work, and a lot of it is quite boring. So scraping off old underseal, cleaning things back, wire wool, sanding things, dipping stuff, painting it, a lot of it isn't exciting, it isn't glamorous, and isn't sexy. However, putting it all back together is quite exciting. When you get boxes of things that turn up and everything's here and it's the right bit, and you get to put it all back together again, it is interesting. I do enjoy that part of it. It becomes hard when you've got money constraints, time constraints, you're tired. These things do make it that bit trickier, but I do enjoy watching the transformation. And if you had a lot of money behind you or a lot of time behind you, or preferably both, you can get some really, truly interesting results, some really, truly stunning results.
You really do need to invest an awful lot of, as you say, time and effort, but you need to invest a lot of money in kit, because so many cars of all ages, and I've been working on cars since I was a kid, And there's always the specialist bit you needed. The one I discovered not many years ago was the device for putting the springs back on brakes. You know, that long elongated spring with the double hooked end? You can get a device to just do that, which
Wow.
saves squashing it with a pair of pliers, which was the usual way of doing it. It's just a complicated hook. Costs you a couple of quid, but you know the trade knows all these tricks and all these tools.
There have been so many useful tools that I've bought that not necessarily have been expensive. Tools like a long distance reaching water pipe clip. So, you know, the ones that are sort of like a sprung clip that go past each other.
Yeah.
And you can squeeze it all the way through the engine bay because it's like on a long wire effectively, hook it over the top of the clamp, which you would normally do with a pair of mole grips or a pair of long nose pliers, and then invariably slip and trap your finger in it and everything else. And you just literally hook it over the top, squeeze the trigger, and it locks on. You can just slide the thing back. It makes things so easy, and it was about a tenner. I bought a series of long nose pliers, which are about 12 inches long. Again, you could get to... I needed to replace an emissions pipe on a Focus. I could get through the front of the inlet manifold, pull it off, put the next one back on again. Happy days at taking the manifold off. Stupid stuff like this, and you think, why on earth did I not invest in this in the past? And I guess part of that's a learning process. And if you're interested in that and you're listening now and you want to see my comedy attempt at doing just that on a budget, in a single garage, in the cold, whilst being very tired, and I apologise for the low energy approach that I sometimes show at 10 or 11 o'clock at night, and it is tough. And if you've done this, you know what it's like.
Yeah.
Then check out our YouTube channel.
Whenever I watch those videos, if there was a human representation of the low battery warning you get on an iPad, iPhone, whatever you happen to use, it is your face when you're doing those videos, without a doubt.
My sort of lowest point, I seem to remember many years ago, was it was just in a car parking area which was cobbled, and it was replacing the gearbox on an Austin A60. And they're heavy bloody things, and the only way you could lift it into place if you were on your own was to have it on your chest and then sort of flex yourself up so that it went back into place. It's just, you know, no tools, no energy, and a complete bloody nightmare to do. So much of what has to be done on old cars is like that. So, you know, if you can buy a specialist tool, and I mean, I've now got several jacks, so I can lift a bloody gearbox back into place, rather than relying upon the strength of my ribs to do so. It was not a nice experience, particularly when it started raining.
Or better than that, employ a man to do it for you with a ramp and a garage, because these things are obviously a real pain to do, and I can understand why people would rather just pay someone to do it. But
I'm too mean to do that.
Well, you know, if you're petrolheads like us, if you've got a project car at home, or you're just too tight, let us know, because we'd be really interested to see it, and we'd be really interested to see how you've tackled the problem of restoring a car at home. So if you've got something interesting, tweet us, Facebook us, DM us, whatever you like. We're UK Motor Talk everywhere, and we'd definitely like to see it.
And if your idea is good enough, then we'll think about it for a TV series to add to all of the others.
Well, why not indeed? We'd certainly like to
quite
feature on our YouTube channel, so let us know. Good. Back to car programmes then, if I may. There's one that I really did enjoy, and I was quite disappointed they didn't do more of, and that was For the Love of Cars, with Philip Glenister and Anstead. And I really thought that was a brilliant series. And Anstead, the quality of his work is just something else. I don't know if you've seen any of his cars up close if you've been to a show, or if you watch the programme, and it was hilarious. They made a big thing of the fact that he would become emotionally involved with the people selling the car, and be like, it's more than I want to pay, but I'm going to buy the car anyway. Which I'm sure is probably what happens in most of the TV series. I'm sure people they buy the car, whatever it is, and then the rest of it might be television. But he'd buy the car, bring it back, and he would restore it, get interested in the history. And clearly Philip didn't know that much about the cars perhaps, but he was very good at presenting the history of the car and a bit of information about it, and was always clearly impressed by what Ant had done. And he would turn a wreck around and do a proper restoration on it, and it was absolutely fantastic. Now, you'd see little clips of what he would do, but not necessarily the whole thing. It is involved, and I'd be quite interested genuinely in watching a series, a restoration series, and watching a single car being restored over a series, just to see the things that they've done to it. I appreciate it might not be high octane for everybody, and it's maybe not the kind of thing that's your tea time viewing because it's not half an hour or an hour long. But I think that'd be quite interesting.
You can always learn from these things. There's always something to be learned. Some programs far better than others, but Anstead is certainly, for me, he's a good mechanic to watch. You can learn an awful lot from the way he does stuff.
He's a nice guy too, actually. He is a genuinely nice chap. If you ever get the opportunity to speak to him when he's not in America, then definitely do. He does some of the classic car shows, and he did one up in Surrey a little while back. And yeah, genuinely top bloke, really interested in cars and just talking about them, which is really nice. And it's nice to find characters that really do just live the passion the same way that we do. And I think you have to really be interested in it to do it, because otherwise it would just be boring as hell. If you've ever prepped a car for paint, it takes a long time, hours and hours and hours, weeks sometimes, to get the panels, to get them flat, to get the primer how you want it to be. And it's got to be perfect before it gets painted, because otherwise you really see it through the paint. There's a couple of examples of my car. I spent about 7 weeks prepping the paint, and I took it to where I worked at the time. We tucked it in the corner of the workshop, and then one day we wheeled it out and we painted the car. And all the paint pickled up in a couple of areas because the accelerant I'd used in the primer seemed to just react with the paint. We have no reason to suspect it would, because it didn't do it anywhere else, but a couple of bits we had to flat back really quickly. And you can see the difference in the panels where I'd spent weeks preparing them, and those little bits where we'd gone, bloody hell, I need to get this car painted in time for my wedding, because it was pretty close to the wire. And just how quickly we had to flat that back and get it ready to paint it. You can see the difference in the quality. It makes a massive difference, and I learned a lot very quickly. And I think that's important. I think that's kind of okay if you're doing this stuff yourself. You do learn from your mistakes. But that kind of thing, I think would be particularly interesting for me to see. I'm not sure it's for everybody. And then you get different kinds of shows. Like you say, Top Gear is very much entertainment based now. Do you learn a lot about cars from it? Maybe not.
Absolutely not.
I don't know. I think you learn a bit about the cars from Chris Harris. I think
Yes.
I think Paddy and Freddie are there for entertainment. I mean, I'm not the biggest fan of Paddy's presenting style when it comes to Top Gear. Not quite sure he's right, but Freddie and Chris seem to have that chemistry together and work quite well. I think Freddie's getting the hang of it.
Yeah.
But I think they're always on a hiding to nothing, those three, aren't they? Because they are not Clarkson, Hammond and May. And it's as simple as that.
Yeah, but they're still doing some of the same sort of nonsense.
I feel really sorry for them, because they're expected to do a certain formula in Top Gear. We've seen them in person, and they do have a really good chemistry. And Freddie Flintoff is one of Chris Harris's heroes. Chris Harris is a fantastic journalist. He is an absolutely top-notch journalist when it comes to cars. He knows what he's talking about. He knows how the car feels, and he knows how to drive. He's produced a whole series of films on YouTube. Obviously, he had his own channel, Chris Harris on Cars. The stuff that he did was absolutely excellent. And I've got a huge amount of time for him. I really do, as a serious journalist. I enjoy Top Gear as entertainment. I don't see it as a serious car show. I've been watching Fifth Gear Recharged, which Fifth Gear you think would probably be following Top Gear in the way that it was trying to do certain challenges and things. It's not the case at all. Fifth Gear has gone the other way, and they've gone to what I guess I was going to say classic Top Gear, but I mean sort of pre-Clarkson era Top Gear was like, where they would have a road test and they'll talk about the cars. I actually find it really interesting, partly because it's still relatively new technology, so I'm learning a lot. They had Grace Webb off of Grace's Amazing Machines, which if you've got kids, you will know some people call Top Gear, because she goes and experiences different planes and trains and cars and all kinds of bits and pieces. Again, presented really well on motorbikes, electric motorbikes. I find, again, really just quite interesting to sit and watch. Karen Chandok, Jason Plato.
It's quite an old-fashioned format, and it's quite sort of retro in that respect. But for me, it works. I enjoy watching it, because at least there are people that are passionate about cars and talking about that passion.
Yeah. The other thing is now that when we think about car shows, we don't necessarily think about car shows just being on telly, because there are so many YouTube channels dedicated to cars and different types of cars. We've mentioned before the Late Break Show, Johnny Smith, who is, again, absolutely brilliant. Huge amount of research, massive car guy, and really entertaining. You can sit there and you can watch half an hour's worth of show about something you're not particularly interested in, and I find it interesting. As a car guy, I think that's difficult to engage me in. You'll be sat there chatting about a Peugeot for 3/4 of an hour, and I will sit there and watch it, and I'll appreciate what he's done. I might not like the car still, but I do find it genuinely interesting. And I find it a fantastic way just to sit there and unwind and switch off. And sometimes even just have it on in the background when he's talking, really relaxing. You know, it's you can sit there, listen, and not necessarily focus too hard on it, but enjoy a shared passion. And I think that's where YouTube works very well. I mentioned before about Ed China. There's the other end of the scale. You've got people that chase supercars. You've got the likes of Shmee 150. Maybe not for you. It's not a character that I particularly like, I'll be completely honest. However, I saw an interview with him, funny enough, on the Late Break Show, where he was Tim and not Shmee, the character, and he explained the reason why he has the cars, the business rationale between buying them and how that achieves more views and hits and everything else, and the business reason behind having his cars. And it kind of makes a lot of sense. I actually liked him more as a person because he was explaining in a genuine way why he has the cars. He enjoys the cars, but why he creates his content and how that's his life. I found that really refreshing. So there's a bit of something out there for everybody, really.
Do you want that half an hour of background or information discovering something new? Like you say, you can sit down and watch Johnny Smith and his work on a car you're not particularly interested in, but it becomes interesting of the way he is, and that's quite nice. And actually, if you want a proper sit-down road test, then you've got Chris Harris, or you've got Carfection with Henry and the way he drives and describes cars and communicates what he's feeling. I think, to be honest, if you're looking for information, then I think the YouTube format, the half an hour, 20 minute, 10 minute, 9 minute, whatever it is, video on that specific car is a better format for it. If you're looking at a 45-minute, hour-long show on terrestrial television or Freeview satellite, however you watch it, it needs to be a bit broader, so therefore maybe slightly more entertainment-based to keep everyone's attention. If it's a series of, you know, tests of reasonable size, practical family hatchbacks, then yes, that's informative if you want to buy one of them, but maybe not the most entertaining. So actually, the Top Gear and things like that, are they better off being pure entertainment? I suppose it's a little bit like I don't enjoy watching tennis or cricket, but more so in the Sue Barker days and Matt Dawson and Phil Tufnell, less so in the Paddy and Sam and Ugo iteration. I like watching Question of Sport. So I don't like tennis, but I like a question of sport. So a question of sport, is it there to inform? Are you there to gain encyclopedic knowledge of sport, or is it just entertainment, watching people larking around? I think Question of Sport's tried to go a bit too much down the entertainment route and change what it is. I think they need to dial it back and get slightly more back to the old format. But again, there's maybe the Paddy McGuinness influence coming in there rather than the format of the show itself.
I think you could be right. Yeah, there's a fine line, isn't there, between being interesting because you're a fan, being entertainment which is open to everybody, and being, dare I say it, maybe just a bit too laddie in some aspects. I know Top Gear's been accused of that.
I think maybe Clarkson plays there's Jeremy Clarkson, the person, and I think we saw a bit more of this in the farming show, didn't we? You saw more of Clarkson for who he is, and then when you see him on telly, he's playing up to Jeremy Clarkson, the TV personality.
Yeah.
And it was quite nice to see the two, and actually he plays up to the character very well. Whether you like the character or not is more of the question. Like I say, Paddy McGuinness, when he's in full on trying to be one of the lads, let's go boys mode, I'm not a big fan of him. But when you catch them in a more real moment, or when they're more just chatting together, it's more bearable. But I think that chatting and that chemistry only comes with time.
I, for one, enjoy the current series of Top Gear, and I'll continue to watch it. It's not the same as what it was, but then I think it couldn't really be anymore. And I think, to an extent, we see that with the Grand Tour.
We sound old, don't we? It's not like it was in my day. So we're all sounding very creaky and very fuddy-duddy with all this, aren't we?
Well, yeah, I love the trio to bits. But I kind of feel that they need to have a rest now. You know, they've done it. They've been there. They've given us all that entertainment for so many years, and it must be hard to keep that up and keep it fresh.
But I think what maybe tells is when I'm watching reruns on whether it's YouTube or Dave or anything like that, I'll generally turn over if it's a normal show, in effect. But when they race on public transport across Japan against the GTR, or when it's a Burma special, or they go to here that, the hour-long, we go on an epic voyage, an epic journey, those are far more watchable, and those date far less, because it's not about the car at all. A road test of a Mark V Fiesta is not really relevant anymore, is it? You buy a Mark V Fiesta because you need Ankara and it's cheap as chips. You don't buy it because it's got the second best in class boot space, but it has the best in class handling, and it scored half a Euro NCAP star more than the Peugeot whatever it was that was out at the time. So the ones that stand the test of time are the stories, the journeys, I think, and that's what people liked about the Top Gear trio of Clarkson, Hammond and May, was when they go on adventures together. That's what makes a good story, isn't it? And all the books you used to read as a kid, they weren't generally about kids going to school and having a normal day and learning stuff and coming home. You read a book about the famous five because they ended up in a cave somewhere and caught some smugglers or whatever happened. You want interest, you want adventure, you want mystery, you want jeopardy, rather than facts and figures for entertainment.
These classics weren't necessarily about larking around. The larking around happened as a consequence of the circumstances, the thing that was happening, didn't they? There were some fantastic challenges, though, and I forget which series it was. It must have been an absolute golden series. I was sitting there watching where they made the train cars. They made the Jaguar TGV, and then there's the crossing the channel, all this kind of stuff, which was absolutely superb fun to watch. Some of the stuff, like you say, the challenges were maybe a bit more genuine to an extent. For example, where they're driving across the North Pole in the Toyotas or whatever it might be. I appreciate that these things are scripted, and to an extent all these types of shows are contrived to a point. But there have been some brilliant, absolute gold Top Gear episodes, classic Top Gear episodes. And it's almost when they're not trying too hard to have the banter. And I get what you say with McGuinness, because there is that. He does seem to try a bit too hard. But I do feel for the guys in that, as you say, they're always going to try and live up to the trio because they have such a legacy with Top Gear. And I think they freely admit they're not them, and they're trying to do their own thing. And I think that's kind of working out now. Yeah,
I mean, I think that one of the highlights for me over the last season or two has been those longer road trips, or the electric car challenge they did recently, and they ended up on top of a mountain and larking about, and then the range of getting back and racing each other, that kind of thing. That was quite interesting. But I think probably the best piece that Paddy's done on his own was Eddie Kidd, because that was I think the real Paddy, and seeing him meet one of his heroes and the story and a little bit tear jerky, but it was just real. He wasn't, or didn't seem to be, trying too hard. So if they could do a few more things like that, I think that would send the show off in a slightly better direction, I think. Just my 2 pence worth.
I think you could be right. And on that thought, if you have anything you'd like to see us put into our content, so if you want to see certain videos, you want us to talk about certain things on the podcast, then please do let us know, because we're here just to please you. And we do hope you enjoy listening to us chatting about the things that we end up enjoying.
All right. Or even if you have us on in the background.
Yes, or indeed if you just have our dulcet tones helping you get to sleep, do let us know. But we hope you enjoy following us along in our trials and tribulations in automotive life and all the things that we see. We are petrol heads, or car heads, or whatever you want to call it if you want to include the EV stuff, just like you. So thanks for listening, guys. We really appreciate it. And I guess on that note, it's time to say goodbye. So from me, Mike, it's goodbye.
From me, Jim, it's goodbye. Take care.
And from me, Graham, it's goodbye.
UK Motor Talk, a First Take Media production.